All right, what's up, everyone? I'm creating this video for you as a result of two things that I have said in the last year. Number one is this tweet that I threw out today that I thought of because I was doing a search in my inbox for an old email from Rick Zello, who's a venture capitalist, and I stumbled across one of our early threads, and I actually didn't remember how I got in touch with them. And then I realized, oh shoot, I actually cold emailed him, and it made me think for the first time in a long time, like how many of my speakers for Enterprise Rising. I've had 4 Enterprise Rising conferences. I've probably had, I don't know, maybe let's say 30 speakers total, spread amongst the 4 of them. Keeping in mind that a lot of speakers spoke multiple times. And I was thinking to myself, well, how many of my speakers did I actually cold email? Now, it's worth noting that I use a lot of cold email in life. I am in a position, thankfully, in life where I can get introductions to lots of amazing people, but for the sake of time and for the sake of the fact that I've sent probably 1,000 cold email in the last, let's say, 7 years, I feel pretty comfortable sending cold email. And so this is the first thing that something just recently that I threw out there, and that is just letting people know that even I use cold email, even though lots of people might perceive me to be well connected. I still use cold email a lot to get what I want in life, including speakers to my conference, Enterprise Rising. There's earlier something I had said at my conference back in April. I believe it was the afternoon of the second day, so this would have been April 19th. I said on stage that if you are going to accomplish anything big in life, you need to figure out how to cold email. And I want to unpackage that because it might sound very boisterous or larger than life. And my intent is not that it's larger than life. It's only that if you want to accomplish larger than life goals, which is to say that you want to be accomplish better than average things in life, the people that you need or want are not going to be in your network, and they may not even be in your network's network. So the people that have the resources you want to succeed in life, whether you're a startup person or whether you're trying to achieve something else, like write a book or start a nonprofit, odds are people that will be able to really like 5 and 10x your year or your growth this year to get you the things that you need, like wisdom or knowledge or connections or money. These people are probably not in your network or even in your network's network. So being able to cold email or at least put together a cold, let's say a message that you can DM or through LinkedIn, which is probably worse than email in terms of getting results, but still it's worth a shot, is a skill that's worth honing in life. And the way you hone it is by learning from others as well as just lots of practice. So I wanted to I saw that James said, can we see some of these emails? Yeah, I'm happy to share the emails that I used. These are real emails that I used to get both Stelly, who's CEO and co-founder of Close.io, Paul Singh, who is a multiple-time founder. He started 500 Startups with Dave McClure back in the day, which became a very big deal. And he now does a shit ton of his own investing that has nothing to do with 500 Startups, but just him and his wife, Dana, or fiancee Dana, soon-to-be wife. Rick Zello is a VC launching a brand new firm, Equals Ventures. But before this, for years and years, he was with Lightbank out of Chicago, Lightbank Ventures, and John Sheehan, a several-time entrepreneur. He was also an early employee at Twilio and sold his startup RunScope to CA Technologies, which itself was just acquired 2 weeks ago. But nonetheless, CA is a big, huge mammoth, like $5 billion technology company. He also was, just like everyone else on this list, somebody I cold emailed, got them to come speak, even though I had no prior relationship with them at all, had no conversation with them previously, and it was all based on an email. So buckle up, here we go. Paul Singh was weird in that I can't show you the email that I sent him because it wasn't actually an email. I actually went to his website. I think it was called the RJ Results Junkies is like the name of his holding company. So Results Junkie, RJ Tech Tour, I think it was called .com. He actually had a form that you could fill out, and I filled out the form on a lark not actually expecting anything. And sure enough, like 3 weeks later, he responded, and we got a dialogue going. And bada bing, bada boom, he came and spoke at Enterprise Rising 2017, a year ago, and was epic and awesome. And he came back to speak this year. Again as well, 2018. So I'm very grateful for that. So, but unfortunately, I don't remember at all what I wrote in that form. It was probably super short, and it was probably like, here's why this is good for you. Come meet some kick-ass entrepreneurs. I'll line up a bunch of entrepreneurs for you to meet with that perhaps you would want to fund. But I couldn't even recreate it if I tried right now, even if I tried to channel the inner me from 2 years ago, so long ago. But Paul, and by the way, a quick note, it took him like 3 or 4 weeks to respond to me, which is probably very normal in his world. For a lot of people, when you cold email somebody and it takes them 3 to 4 weeks to get back, you probably have already given up hope. Don't give up hope. If anything, follow up. But I just bring that up only to calibrate anyone's expectation of the higher the food chain, up the food chain you're going, the longer the lag will be, and that should not demoralize you, and you shouldn't throw in the towel just because you don't hear from them in 3 days. I'm going to go in order. Here's the email that I sent to Stelly. First, I need to prepare you for how this all went down. I had subscribed to the Close.io newsletter, just like probably tens of thousands of people. So I got email from Stelly like crazy. They're awesome email. They teach a lot of really amazing tactics, and I got tons of great value out of them. And so the way that I actually emailed Stelly was by not emailing him. I did not send him a cold email. I actually took one of his emails that was part of an email blast that went out to probably 50,000 people just like me, and actually replied to that or turned it back on him. And I'll show you how I did that. Now, this is very unorthodox and very weird. I've never done this before, but just to better preface this, I actually did not plan on inviting Stelly to speak at my conference. It wasn't because I didn't want him. It was because I felt like the conference was coming up really fast, and my speaker lineup was filling up very fast. Thankfully, almost everyone I had asked to speak said yes, and I was really heads down, specifically focused on just recruiting female founders near the very end. And so I wasn't actually making a concerted effort to reach out to Stelly, but something happened to make me have to do it. And here's what happened. Stelly wrote an email as part of the email blast. And forgive me, my browser's a little slow right now just because I'm recording. Okay, so let me scroll down a little bit. Stelly writes this email as part of the newsletter. I want to help you send better cold email. So I'm picking 10 people to work on over the next 3 months and improving their cold email. The subject line for this email that went out to me and 50,000 other people was, I will review your cold emails and improve them for you. Okay. So I wasn't actually expecting to invite Stelly, even though I think he's just super badass, and I would love to have him come to my conference, but I was feeling like my speaker lineup was already close to full or going to be full. So I thought I'd just wait a year, but all of a sudden this shows up in my inbox, and I was like, damn, like how awesome would this be? So I hit reply, and this is what I wrote, and I'll shut up and let you read. Let me dissect some of my thinking here, just so you're clear on what was purposeful. So number one, I hit reply, and I should add that he actually asked for this, so I knew that it would be read. Okay, because in his original email, he says, let's see, where are you? He says, hit reply to this email telling me I'm in, okay? And then I will go on and read your email, your cold email, and I will help you improve it. So I knew that he was going to be, filtering through this, or at least his assistant would filter through this. And I always assume that the assistant actually gets first dibs on email, even if I don't think it's true. I just assume it. It's a good assumption to bake into any cold email that you do. So I hit reply. I changed the subject line so that this wouldn't get buried into some big long thread in his inbox, or wouldn't go into some kind of special rule system, or his assistant wouldn't just automatically tag it as something that was not what it was, because I don't want him to improve my cold email. I want him to come and speak at the conference. All right. So this was serendipitous that Anthony Niemitz, who is his co-founder at Close.io, is actually a native Minnesotan. He went to the U of M and actually spoke at my very, 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 very first Enterprise Rising. He's very gracious. Anthony's a great product guy. He's technical. And so he talked about the early days of Close.io. And Anthony's great. Now he lives out in Montana. I'm not sure what he's doing. I guess he has a herd of buffalo that he's looking after while he continues to grow Close.io with Stelly, since they have a distributed team. But so I had that to kind of lean back on, like, listen, like, I'm not this complete nobody or this complete weirdo. Your homeboy Anthony spoke at my conference, so it can't be all that bad. I added this because I really didn't have I wanted to use some type of social proof, and I also didn't want to use the most generic kind of social proof that there is. So I wanted to go as personal and as intimate as I could, and that was the fact that, hey, your co-founder spoke at my conference 3 years ago, so it can't be all that bad. Anyways, I had one call to action. That was it. Short call, 15 minutes. Whenever I ask for a phone call, it's always 15 minutes. It's never 30 or 45. Let's keep it. Let's date before we get married. If you can't accomplish anything in 15-minute phone call, then maybe it's time to reassess what your phone calls look like. So this was it. And 31 days later, and by the way, I have no problem sharing the email publicly, because his email is everywhere online and he shares it very publicly pretty much everywhere. 31 days. Love the idea. I won't take you through the entire the email thread, but at the end of the day, he ended up beaming in via Hangout. We took real cold email from real founders. I think we were able to get through like 9 or 10, and live in front of the entire audience, Stelly, on 3 big screens that were up front. He, from California, did a teardown of all these cold emails, and it was epic. It was so good. And you can find it online if you just do some keyword searches on Twitter. Enterprise Rising and Stelly. It's recorded and you can find it. It's so good. It's so educational. But anyways, this was the kind of unorthodox, weird, I'm going to reply to your email with an email of my own pitching you. And it thematically it worked out. But nonetheless, what matters is that I used fairly short sentences. I didn't spend any time like talking about myself. Here's why I'm great. Here's why I'm awesome. Here's why you should pay attention to me. He's got the links down here if he wants to do a deep dive into anything about me, although I have no idea if he actually did. Fact. I don't use a lot of adjectives on purpose. Most startup people are sick of adjectives. VCs for sure are sick of adjectives. They're sick of founders telling them like how amazing their team is and how amazing the product is, and how excited customers are. These words don't mean anything to people in the startup world because they hear it so much. And what's in it for me? Well, this is what's in it for you. Okay. So that's Stelly. We're going to go to, who are we going to go to? Rick Zello. Rick Zello was, you can see here at the very bottom here, it's actually the first one to him bounced. I actually got his email wrong. I believe at this time he did not have his email on his on the website on lightbank.com. So I had to do some guesswork, and evident by this, I probably did some Google searching too. like Rick at blankety blank or some of his other partners at lightbank.com. And for whatever reason, I thought it was one thing, but it was actually another. Sorry, my browser is just really slow right now. I'm not sure why. Here we go. Okay, so here's the cold email. Rocking Enterprise in the Midwest. I'm going to shut up and let you, whoops. Well, this is the one that bounced, but that's okay. You can still see what my actual message was. All right. So it turns out that the correct one was Rick at lightbank.com. I finally got that right. Couple things. Rocking Enterprise in the Midwest. Now, since I did my homework and stalked him properly, I knew that he was all about enterprise. He had invested in a lot of enterprise companies. He was actually the co-organizer of the Enterprise Meetup Group in Chicago, and also the Enterprise Meetup Group in New York, since he splits his time between Chicago and New York. And so, like, I knew he eats and breathes enterprise. So if I didn't have the word enterprise on the subject line, like, shame on me. Midwest, again, shame on me. He's from Chicago. He's I mean, he works for a Midwest VC firm, Lightbank in Chicago. All of his fellow VCs are proud Chicagoans, all of the ex-founders of Groupon. So this was a subject line that was not very call to action-y, and I'll admit back in 2015, I'd write differently than I would back then. I probably would use, do you want to come rock enterprise in the Midwest? Question mark. Now, even though this got results, I find that asking questions in subject lines gets even stronger results. Super short, to the point, no gushing about how great I am or how great the conference is, and really, really clear call to action. You got to understand that VCs have no attention span. Like, the minute an email is anything more than, let's say, 50 words, like there's this immediate weird reaction that goes off inside their body, unless it's an update from a portfolio CEO. Their ability to actually follow every sentence and every paragraph plummets to almost zero. So super short, super to the point. Nothing. Keep in mind that I'm not trying to be persuasive. Okay. Nothing about is persuasive. It's all about being clear. Clarity trumps persuasion when it comes to emails. It's not about using clever language. It's not about. So I guess I added something to the second email. Check this out. And by the way, this is something that I actually add to all VCs. If a VC just does not care about the Midwest, if they don't care about Minneapolis, if they don't care about the upper Midwest, they have one job to do, right? They've got this mountain of cash that they need to deploy as smartly as possible within a certain time frame, and they need a couple grand slams. That's it. They have a job to do. I know it's oftentimes easy to see VCs as just very nice, outgoing champions of the startup community. And yes, they kind of are, but they have a job to do. So I wanted to make sure and just be honest and upfront with them that there actually has to be a logic to him coming up. For him to get on a plane and come all the way up here and spend a day and hop on a plane back, like, I really want to make sure right up front that nobody's wasting time. This is me really looking out for his scarce, finite time. So, whenever I'm emailing a VC, like, I write the email, I go back and I cut, I go back and I cut, and I go back and cut. It would probably astonish most people to know, even though I email VCs probably about, I don't know, let's say 20 to 40 times a month, every month, it'd be astonishing to people how much time I actually spend editing and modifying and cutting every single time I write an email. No, not even just cold, just a normal email, but for sure cold. The stakes are much higher with cold, and they just have everyone's attention span is low, but VCs just get so much email, their attention span can't be high, so it has to be really low. So anyways, so this was what got results with Rick Zello. He came and spoke and was awesome and was just pure money. He was my opener of the day back in Enterprise Rising 2016. For those of you that might have remembered, if you came That was the one that took place at St. Thomas, downtown Minneapolis. John Sheehan. Okay, I'm going to shut up and let you read. Now you might be confused because all my cold emails are very different. They don't seem very templated. You probably read some blog post of like the 1 or 2 templates that you should use and just use them over and over. And I get that. There's a lot of logic to that. I do a fairly significant amount of homework on everyone before I email them. And I almost try to pretend like I'm having a real conversation with them. So for example, I will go through somebody's Twitter stream quite a bit before I email them and try to get a feeling for how formal or casual they are, what kind of words they drop, what their sentence structure is like. I mean, this only takes me like 5 minutes, but it has a very material impact on how I write to them. This goes times 100 if it is cold. And so doing homework is something that's just very ingrained in me. I've been doing it forever. Even as I get better and better networked, I still do an incredible amount of research leading into, for example, first meetings. I spend probably 5 to 10 minutes doing some research and some real thought around what I want out of the meeting before meeting somebody for the very first time. And if you're looking for a secret hack, the best way for me to really get a feel for a person is to go to their Twitter handle, click on media, and look at their whatever media that they tweet out, whether it's photographs that they've taken or whether it's charts or graphs of something that they're really interested in. A tweet is fairly easy to tweet out, but media tells a lot more about the person. Anyways, let's get back to email, and I'll stop psychoanalyzing. Game for a coffee in early November. Almost all of my cold email now that I send out is always the call to action is right in the subject line, and there's almost always a question mark. By the way, some people think that subject lines need to be short. I think that that's absolutely wrong. Like that's the opposite of right. It's about as wrong as you can get. Subject lines need to be clear. They need to be interesting in that they have to somewhat stand out. You could probably make your subject line like 10 words long. It doesn't matter how long it is. It just needs to be clear and not misleading. You cannot dupe somebody into opening your email with a subject line that has nothing to freaking do with your email, right? If you really want to go for 100% open rate, you would probably have something like, I kidnapped your dog and I'm holding him for ransom. That would get 100% open rate, but you would start off on a terrible, terrible footing with this person in terms of tone and trust and rapport. And also, it has nothing to do with the email, so it would just piss them off further. And you would either get a non-reply or you get a nasty reply. We've never met. Actually, I have no problem putting this in a cold email, and I do often. This is especially true if we run in similar circles, but we just never come across each other. So, in fact, I would say that's the only time I use this. If we run in very similar circles. So here's a guy, John Sheehan. He's a tech startup guy, and he's here in Minnesota. And so I just wanted to make it clear to him that, we didn't meet 2 years ago, and I'm just following up like 2 years later. We've never met. And so I just wanted to make sure he didn't think I was trying to sound like I was a pal or that we have some previous connection. Enterprise Tech. Well, his last company was an enterprise tech company. In fact, the last 3 startups of his, let's see here. If This Then That was very B2B-ish. And before that was Twilio, which was very B2B-ish. So, of course, I'm going to bring this up pretty freaking early that I am involved in the enterprise tech space in Minnesota. The 3 things that he cares about: enterprise tech, startups, and Minnesota. Actually, I didn't bring up startup. I probably should have. Happy to come to you in White Bear Lake. By the way, this is, I knew he lived in White Bear Lake because I believe his Twitter profile stated so. Even if you don't know this, it's pretty easy stuff to figure out with 20 seconds of Google searching, something that I am absolutely no shame in trying to figure out what part of town this person lives in. happy to come to you, super important. I mean, if this person actually lives in the same city as you or same region as you, um, always, always, always offer to come to them. If you want their time, you want their attention, you want to have a convo with them, Jesus, go to them, go to their office. He had just gotten acquired by CA Technology, like, I don't know, like 5 or 6 weeks previous. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if I waited. Um, I think it was announced. Uh, it was announced, and I think I actually it wouldn't have surprised me if I put on my calendar like 6 weeks after that to reach out to him, and it had nothing to do with him being necessarily acquired, but during and right after an acquisition, like a founder's life is hell. They are drowning uh, on top of drowning. So thinking that you're going to reach out to a CEO like a day or two or 3 or 6 or 14 or 21 right after he got it, after an acquisition is announced is a terrible, terrible way to start a dialogue. So I gave him an out here. I always look for ways to give outs, always, always. Some salespeople would probably think I'm being silly. I don't care. I'm trying to optimize for rapport and trust less than trying to do a hard close on getting him to say yes to a coffee. Let me know if your game, as well as where you are most days. Once I know, I can throw out a bunch of days. And indeed, he said later this week, which is unusual for me to be able to spit on a dime like that, but I threw out some times using Mixmax. I always use Mixmax to throw out days and times like this because then it's really, really frictionless for him to click yes on a time. We got together, we chatted. He actually was super open and super like forthright about the journey and the acquisition. I was like, damn, if you're going to be this open and forthright with me, like you got to be on stage. And so right then and there, I said, would you be open to, this was in October, would you be willing to speak at my conference in April? He's like, for sure, I'm in. And sure enough, so next spring I emailed him. He was in, and he was amazing, amazing speaker at Enterprise Rising this previous spring. Just brought it, told an amazing story, and it could not have been better. He was easily like the speaker that most surprised me with how amazingly transparent he was, telling his story about RunScope being acquired by CA after running out of money and after a bunch of other failed acquisitions and after having to lay off or fire just about his entire team all in one day. It was a crazy story, but it was awesome. Anyways, so that's my thought process behind each and every email. Go back and I literally go back and cut and shorten it down to everything. Make it as easy for them to say yes as possible. Make one call to action and that's it, no more. Here, of course, it's let me know if you're game, and if so, what most days. You could have even put this in bold, but nonetheless, my conversion rate on cold email, which again I probably send somewhere around 200 cold email a year. My conversion is probably about 93%, meaning 93% of all people actually reply or respond. And the percentage that actually convert to getting the outcome that I want, whether it's like speaking at a conference or something totally different, it probably hovers around 85%. That's 8.5. So I'm doing pretty well in life. Note that I wasn't always good at cold email. In my early days, my cold emails were rambling and long, and I spent so much effort, so much time trying to impress them with everything about me. That's what these links are for. If they really want to click and learn, fine, they can click and learn. Let them do that. At the end of the day, they'll lead with whatever you have in common, and then get to whatever the call to action is pretty fast. That's what I've learned. Hopefully that works well for you. Feel free to borrow or steal anything that I've shown today. Hope this was helpful. James and anybody else that was interested in how I went about actually cold emailing my speakers to get these very, very busy and successful people to commit to coming to Minneapolis for a day or two to come speak to a room full of founders. Hit me up on Twitter if you have any further questions about what I did or how I did it.